you're doing that over and over within stonemasonry. From that, you start to build up all the skills you need, really. You know, you learn and you go from one step and you learn the next level and you do something slightly more difficult.
At first I wanted to be an anarchist, but it's quite difficult to be an anarchist and you can end up in jail. So, but I didn't want to do a boring job. I didn't want to follow what the teacher and all my environment want. My parents, they wanted me to be a civil servant, my parents. Oh, if you could become a civil servant, they would have been so happy. And no, it was not for me.
Well, I'm stood right outside Gloucester Cathedral today, one of the great cathedrals of the UK, famous for the tomb of King Edward II and, of course, more recently for the beautiful cloisters which featured in the Harry Potter movie series. And when I think about medieval buildings such as this, cathedrals and castles, I think of building techniques of yesteryear, skills that have perhaps been lost. Some of these buildings have been in existence for hundreds of years, and if not in some cases over 1,000 years. But I'm actually here today to meet with some real-life stonemasons whose skill will hopefully help to preserve buildings such as this for many hundreds of years to come. The site of Gloucester Cathedral, originally an abbey, dates back to the 7th century. The present stone building was begun in the period following the Norman conquest and evolved throughout the Middle Ages to the structure we see today. At the time of completion, the stained glass east window was the largest in existence, and the fan-vaulted cloisters are regarded as the finest of their type in the world. Gloucester Cathedral is one of only a small number of cathedrals in the UK with a dedicated stonemasons workshop and team, and I was fortunate to be invited by stonemason James Bayliss to talk about their work and specifically the apprenticeship program they have.
Obviously you've got to have a sort of natural aptitude for hand tools. That obviously helps. There's a physical side to it. I can be here punching like I'm doing now on a stone for all day. So you've got to have that resilience, I'd say, but equally a discipline to it as well. So you've got to be prepared to do a certain thing, like maybe like this punching. Potentially days and days, not that long, but it's a repetitive discipline and patience, creativity as well. Essentially what we do is a lot of it is just a series of flat surfaces worked into different moldings, but you've got to have an understanding of a 2D drawing and put that into a 3D object. So you need to understand that perspective. And then you can branch into all sorts of other disciplines as well, really, what you need. Apprentices will come in on the CWF, which is the Cathedral Works Fellowship, and we'll take them on for a couple of years, and they'll either be working on their level 3 program or the foundation degree, which is the level 4 and 5. And then within that, they get a rounded education of all aspects of cathedral heritage masonry. So from the very start with the architectural and archaeological analysis of the building, the condition of the fabric, the setting out, the working of the stones, There's a carving module as well, and understanding the cathedral environment. So giving them a broad range of everything they need to pursue their career in the heritage environment. Depending on what projects come up and what we can fund. So we've got a funding team that will provide us with the necessary funds to do a certain project, and the projects are also then dictated by what is needed from the quinquennial report, which our architect will he'll do a survey of the building, and so yeah, we can end up going round and around, but the building's not in a dire strait. It's not it's in a state of emergency, but it's a lot of these. It's the external parapets really that get the brunt of the weather, and they're the ones that need the stone replacement. And yeah, it's just looking at the building and trying to understand it and looking after it.
There are currently several trainee apprentices in the stonemasons workshop, and having heard about the Cathedral Works Fellowship from James, I was keen to hear firsthand how they were finding their experience. Kai is currently undertaking his level 3, and I caught up with him in the yard as he was in the process of transforming a block of stone to a perfect sphere.
Part of that is also just constantly checking with tools, making sure that that's straight, it doesn't feel weird. It's all about if it looks right as well.
How long is that likely to take you?
Well, I've already been doing this now for 2 weeks, and I've probably got another 2 weeks left on it, maybe 3. So it's to develop my masonry, just as a good carpenter should know their wood. Okay. I believe a good mason should know their stone. Right. So that's kind of like the development of where I want to go.
What drew you to stonemasonry in the first place?
It was half of the fact that it was like an art form, which I love art, and another thing of that I wanted something that was like very hands-on. I could go into work every day and I'm not sat down in an office. Right. It's really like the freedom of it. Right. Like I'm outside in the summer in lovely weather, and I'm inside when it's cold and freezing. So it's just continuous practice. I suppose maths to an extent for the geometry, for when you're doing like the architectural setting out, that helped a lot. But the occasional time you'll be doing something really tired and you just look up and you've got this beautiful like monolith staring you down, which it can be quite powerful at times. Like I'm not religious myself, but like just the awe of the building itself is amazing. Yeah. Hannah is another apprentice who is currently on the Cathedral Works Fellowship at Gloucester. In her case, this has represented a major career change, having originally embarked upon a degree in chemistry in York. She spoke to me about her path into this heritage tradition.
Yeah, so for me, stonemasonry sort of has 2 sides to it that I enjoy. I wanted the practical side where I sort of could, work through something methodically with my hands, and with the end result, I've got something that like I feel like I can be proud of. So there's that side of it, and then there's also the heritage side for me. So I knew I wanted to work like in the heritage sector. I wanted to do something again that I felt mattered. So that's like the sort of 2 sides of it. So it's like the practical side, and then the sort of side where I feel like I'm working towards something that was not a spreadsheet. I was always quite good at like the academics or stuff like maths and sciences, and I think beyond knowing I was like good at it, I didn't really know what else. And I think at the time it was the goals like you go to university and then you sort of figure it out from there. So that's why I ended up with chemistry, because it was something that I was good at, and then I did quite like it. It did have the practical elements to it that I enjoyed, but I just sort of, as I was doing the degree, I sort of realised that like it's not what I wanted to do. But it's hard to know what you want to do, isn't it, especially at that age. So I think coming at this later in life, I had that time to sort of figure out what I wanted, and I could take that time and having a bit of experience in a job, realizing what I didn't like for a job or what I did want to do. I didn't really consider anything that I hadn't done as like a subject at school, and I think that sort of hindered me into thinking what else is possible. Like, I think at school, yeah, it was very much dictated by what I did at GCSEs and then what I did at A level, and I didn't really think outside that box very much. And it was only when I had the time, because I was in a job, and I thought I've got to be working for the next however many years. I want to do something that I actually enjoy, that I could take that time to think. I don't actually need to do something related to, what I did at school, basically. It was because I was at York University doing chemistry, and so I saw people, while I was doing my chemistry degree, I saw people working on the Minster, stonemasons working at the Minster. And so at the time, like, I remember thinking, like, oh, that's cool, like, that's a cool job. But because I was sort of on that pathway, and I wasn't thinking about what else I was doing, I was just like, I'm going to do something to do with chemistry is what I was thinking. It didn't occur to me that anything other than that's cool. Like, and then, so then when I was thinking about what do I want, and I was thinking of all the elements that I liked and I wanted to do with heritage and things like that, that I sort of remembered the stonemasons that I saw working, and I thought that, that could be a possibility. The one thing that at the time I was thinking maybe it couldn't be is because I was like, I don't know if I can go back and do training again. But actually, I realised that through apprenticeships you can do that. Like, so I think I was like mid-20s when I was looking at retraining and doing something else. And so I thought I was too old to be an apprentice, but actually it's not the case. Well, within stonemasonry anyway, it's not the case. So like I applied here, and there's no age limit on it. So yeah, that sort of allowed me that step in the door to retrain. Yeah. So I spent 2 years at college getting my level 1 and 2, and then I came here. I've been here for about nearly 3 years, like two and 9 months or so, and so I finished the level 3 like Kai's doing. I had sort of a bonus year before then starting my level 4 that I've just completed this year. So it's all split into different modules, sort of designed to look at different aspects of working as a stonemason, especially in the heritage sector. And then we do reports on it, and then sometimes like part of it is practical work as well. So we just did a project about setting out for replacing one of the medieval stones. So we would do the drawing of it, take the measurements from the building, do the drawing, make the templates, work the stone, and then fix it and replace the old stone as well. So it sort of provides a whole process for you. Yeah. So like the very first thing that people often do is splitting a stone from a large piece with like plug and feathers, sort of doing the traditional way, and then working it in a block into a square block. So you're sort of working a flat surface and then boning it in like by eye. You will work a 90-degree surface to that, and then another 90-degree surface, and eventually turn it into a block. And that's like I think the very first thing that most apprentices do, because through that you're sort of learning a lot of the skills you need to be a stonemason. Obviously, a flat surface is you're doing that over and over within stonemasonry. And once you've done that, you sort of move on to a moulding that might encompass like rolls and curves and cavettos, things like that that isn't just flat surface. But yeah, so sort of from that you start to build up all the skills you need really. So I think if you ask every mason, they probably all start on squaring a block. Yeah. There are times, and obviously there's times where you don't want to make a mistake on something, and so you may be a bit more cautious, and that sort of slows you down a bit. But I think mainly you learn the processes, quite methodically. So it's sort of you're never sort of thrown in the deep end really. You learn, and you go from one step and you learn the next level, and you do something slightly more difficult. So it's quite methodical in a way. Like even though it can be like creative as well. So for me, it's not daunting in that way. You sort of know, you follow the technique and you're gonna get the result, sort of thing.
Having been struck by Hannah's passion for stonemasonry, I was interested to learn what her goals and aspirations were for the future, and whether she had any advice for those tempted by becoming a stonemason.
I sort of wanted to do this for the 4 years here and do this training course to sort of give me a bit of a taste of most of the aspects of stonemasonry. so I could sort of, that would inform me for for what I'm going to do after. I do sort of want to stay within the heritage sector. So whether that's within a cathedral still, or a commercial company that's a heritage company, and that's sort of the idea at the moment of where I'm thinking I'd like to go. But there are like various avenues that you could go down. So it's like I kind of want to get a taste of more, and then make more of a decision, basically. So hopefully the next year will give me another year to think about it. Like I enjoy working with the hand tools, which sort of ties in well with doing heritage work. I think more sort of modern commercial work, you're using like grinders and power tools a lot more. Not that isn't used in heritage as well, but I think heritage, there's a bit more of a focus on trying to sustain the craft as well. So that, for me, I'm sort of like, I enjoy using the hand tools, but I also enjoy working on buildings and things that I know it's like I'm contributing to them staying around for a lot longer. I'm contributing to sort of history, I suppose. Try and get as much experience as possible. I think that's how you learn. So whether it is like going to college or getting an apprenticeship, just trying to take as much experience from it as possible. Yeah.
After speaking with the apprentices, James gave me a quick tour of some of the building work. Many of the current stones are being prepared for the ongoing restoration to the parapets above the nave, which is the main focus for this year. The work of a stonemason goes well beyond the workshop. Remote parts of the building needs to be accessed. Mortar needs to be applied. Inclement weather needs to be negotiated. Much of the stone itself has to be imported from France, where limestone quarries have been preserved in greater numbers, unlike in England, where many natural resources within the ground have been built over by housing and infrastructure. Back inside the cathedral, attention will turn next year to the famous cloisters, where the focus of the work will turn to a more of a restoration exercise rather than replacement. Whilst they benefit from modern technology when it comes to access and tools, there is no escaping the fact that the stonework is incredibly old and precious, and often work has to be carried out in close proximity to members of the public. Back at the workshop, there was still one man I was keen to speak to. Pascal is the master mason at the cathedral and has spent several decades working on his craft.
So it is the lower section of a pinnacle, or middle section, because it will sit on top of a shaft, a square shaft, which itself will sit on the top of the parapet, the castellated parapet, and that would be the crowning of the parapet at regular interval. Each bay, you got these pinnacles. The idea behind pinnacles is to bring additional weight to counter the pressure of the vault on the walls. So if you put a lot of weight on top of the wall, that will keep the stability of the building and counteract the pressure of the wall, which tend to push the wall out. So that's the reason of this additional weight. But it gave also our predecessors in medieval time to make a creative design, so that they are not just a weight, they are very pretty weight with a lot of carving, but not at the moment because I am at the beginning of the piece. But behind you, that's the setting out which was done by one of our students, one of our apprentices. So that's what it will look like. Well, I'm starting to work on one of the gable. I'm working now on the molding section of one gable. There are 4 of them. And then when that's done, I've got a little finial here to do, which is the apex of the finial. So that's the shape it has. And when that's done, I've got 4, 8 croquette. A croquette is a sort of decorated flower, if you want. It's a stylized flower which was developed in the medieval time from the 12th century to the 15th century. There are many types of croquettes. You can see them at the back. And that's the Gloucester type. York will have different style of croquette. And it gives boundless possibilities of creation and creativity.
I could see for myself the unbelievable ability that Pascal had when it came to working with the limestone, and so I was curious to know how he developed such skill and craft. He told me that he had been a stonemason for 47 years, 34 of which had been spent at the cathedral itself. Originally from France, he had been drawn to stonemasonry partly out of a desire to break free from the shackles of expectation.
At first, I wanted to be an anarchist, but it's quite difficult to be an anarchist, and you can end up in jail. So, but I didn't want to do a boring job. I didn't want to follow what the teacher and all my environment, my parents, they wanted me to be a civil servant, my parents. Oh, if you only you could become a civil servant, they would have been so happy. And no, it was not for me. I wanted to do something.
You're pushing back against that.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know where it's coming from, but yeah, it's interesting because my brothers were also the same. They didn't want to do a conventional career, and one of them became a horse rider, and a specialist in dressage, which was not at all, what our parents would have been able also to help, because we got a very humble background. My dad was a metal worker, not a tool maker, but but a metal worker. And yes, I don't know where it's coming from, but I had that in me, that I wanted to do something different. It's not only stonemasonry, it's all craft skills, and all the craft. They are in today modern society. They are like oases where people can find a proper environment to develop their brain and their physical abilities. Because it's the conjunction of your physical abilities, your physical skills, and your brain creativity. That's what makes a craft. That's what makes an artist. That's what makes creator in all. So sport people actually. If you want to be a Zidane or a Messi, I'm not particularly a sport fan, but if you want to be a Lionel Messi or a Zinedine Zidane, you need to have good brain too, and outstanding physical abilities. So that's another oasis where people can develop that unique marriage between the brain and the body. And I think a lot of people miss that. To have the possibility to have a harmonious development with their body and their brain.
Pascal's passion for expression, craft, and beauty was so genuine that I simply had to ask him what he made of modern architecture.
Oh, it's terrible. And the harm we are doing ourselves is unspeakable. Every time there is a badly designed building, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. People are going to live in that house. They are going to live in a mediocre space with mediocre windows, with everything mediocre. And it is a relentless environment of bad vibes, where there is no respite to the bad vibes. There's this universal mediocrity around you. And that's why people, they want another life. young people, a lot of young people, they don't want to succumb to this prevalent mediocrity, and they want something else for their life. And that's what I'm trying to inspire in my capacity as a stonemason. Don't succumb to mediocrity.
So I've had an absolutely fantastic couple of hours here in the stonemasons yard here at Gloucester Cathedral. In front of me, and the sun's come out really to illuminate this, is the cathedral itself. You know, it's a wonderful place to work. The stonemasons are really inspired by what's in front of them. Combination of working here on the stones and obviously on site itself across the road from me here. What was fantastic was obviously to essentially meet and speak with the different generations. So Kai and Han are obviously doing their apprenticeship at the moment. James has been here for 13 years, and then Pascal, the master mason, has had, you know, almost his entire career here. Apprenticeships are obviously, you know, one particularly talked about career route right now, and stonemasonry is thought of as a very traditional skill. But I think coming here and seeing how it can be applied on a essentially a heritage site just goes to show that it can offer people with the right mindset and that desire to you know, to really do something creative and meaningful. It really is a wonderful career opportunity, and what a fantastic working environment.
With my day at the stonemasons workshop at an end, I felt it was only fitting to give the final word to Pascal. I asked him what was the single piece of advice he would give to young people who are undecided on what they want to do in life.
Always to follow their heart and what is inspire them. That's the most important advice I could give anyone. Whatever it is, follow your heart, and do not listen to the brains of others. Who, oh no, you know, if you want a career and if you want, you know, if you want to be able to pay your mortgage, fuck the mortgage. When it comes to that, and you need a house for your family and so on, you'll deal with that. But never consider that. Never, ever. Consider your heart first. And your guts and your heart. And now we know that actually there are brain cells in our gut too. So follow your gut.